Hey everybody, this is Don with Living Chronically, a channel dedicated to keeping you positive and motivated while living with chronic conditions. In my last video, and I'll put a link up here, a little card up here for it, I talked about how to tell whether or not you've got something going on that you should be concerned about, and some of the things that I wish I would have known ages and ages ago, and wished I would have done ages and ages ago to have limited or potentially lessened the severity of the chronic conditions I deal with now. However, this video is slightly different. This video is about what to do if you've decided you've crossed that threshold. So everybody has a comfort zone in terms of when they need to get some help from a doctor or from the medical field. And whatever that threshold is for you, if you cross it and you're on your way to the doctor, what are some of the things that you should do to prepare for that initial conversation? Things that I wish I had known when I went in, when my chronic pain got to the point where I couldn't deal with it anymore and I needed help to get back on track, right? So first thing, and this goes back to the previous video, I was talking last time about how it's really important to keep a record, to keep a log of how your normal feels. So what feels relatively day-to-day normal, good, decent, what you would qualify as good health. From the top of your head to the bottom of your toes, what feels normal internally and externally. Keeping benchmarks on all of that stuff. Doesn't have to be like a super detailed explanation, but just like, my mood is okay, I'm eating okay, I'm sleeping okay, I'm exercising, there's no major complaints with joints or back or anything like that. I'm digesting food okay. There's no foods that are giving me any trouble. That type of stuff, right? And then if something does come up, so all of a sudden you notice where everything was fine yesterday, today they don't feel quite so good. And over time, that stays the same, gets worse, flares up, goes away, flares up, maybe gets a little bit worse every time it flares up, whatever. Those are the types of things that you need to keep your eyes on and you need to keep records of. So in terms of what to do, first step, keep things written down. Keep a record of your symptoms and the specific problem that you're dealing with. Doesn't matter if it's a mental health issue, doesn't matter if it's a physical mobility type issue or a joint issue, doesn't matter if it's an internal issue like digestion or heart or lungs or whatever, doesn't matter if it's a growth issue. So let's say you've noticed a lump or you've got a lesion or a mole that looks a little weird or whatever, right? All of these things, whatever the concern is, make sure that you identify as well as you can what it is. If it's a mental health concern, is it related to your mood? Is it related to anxiety? Are you going through difficult times? Have you lost a job or have you changed jobs or are you having difficulty with some of the relationships in your life? Are there triggers, right? For those types of things. What are the symptoms? Write them down. Doesn't matter how significant or embarrassing you think they are, write them down. The medical practitioner needs as accurate information as possible to make the best possible diagnosis. The more information you can provide, the better chance they're going to be able to figure out what's going on. So, symptoms, definitely a major component. What else? Triggers. So just as I mentioned for mental health concerns in terms of have you noticed any triggers, likewise, same thing for any other type of issue, whether it is physical, so if it's pain related, whether it's mobility related, whether it is digestion related, have you noticed any triggers? If you do a certain exercise, does your shoulder stop working? Or if you go for a walk, do your knees ache afterwards? If you eat a certain type of food, do you have digestive problems afterwards? Do you notice pain or anything like that after a certain substance or food or drink or anything like that? Have you tried eliminating those things to see if there's a problem? Like I have problems with gluten and with lactose. And so it took me a long time to realize that some of the problems I was having digestively were linked to the fact that I was eating bread and drinking milk. And over time, I experimented a little bit and eliminated certain things from my diet, and all of a sudden things started working a little bit better. So there could be issues like that as well. Finally, so have you tried any over-the-counter medications for pain relief? Have you tried any supplements? Have you tried any alternative substances? Do you drink? Do you smoke? Do you use recreational drugs, right? All of these factors are going to help paint a picture for the doctor to know where you are currently, where you were before, what's potentially impacting things, and what you can do right away. Now, if you walk into the doctor's office, the first couple of questions they're going to ask you are going to be related to your general health. Are you sleeping? Are you eating? Are you stressed out? Are you exercising? And if you've already done those things in preparation for your visit, the doctor's going to take your concern a little bit more seriously, in the sense that if you're already doing the preventative stuff that they would generally ask people to do, then they're going to move to the next phase. Whereas if you're not doing those things, they might say, okay, well, you need to get more sleep. Let's work on your stress. So let's do some mindfulness stuff. You're not exercising enough, so let's start some exercise. You're not eating right, so let's get you working on your diet and that type of thing, right? So that might be as far as they take it the first time. Whereas if you've already done that step and you can show them that you've done that step, then it's more, okay, well, what's the next phase of this and how long has this been going on and that type of thing, right? So, your medical practitioner is going to be concerned, but where they go with it is really going to depend on how much preparation you've done. And that's something that I wish I would have known going into the doctor's office myself when things went bad, because had I already been doing those things, or had I already taken those steps in advance of my first appointment, because I had to wait a couple of weeks to see the doctor, then the doctor would not have been so quick to simply say, okay, do these things, and then we'll check back in a month and see how you feel. He may have said, okay, you've already done those things. They don't necessarily seem to be helping. Let's look at potentially trying a medication or ordering some tests and going from there. And again, everybody's doctor is different, so it's going to depend on where you're at, how significant they think things are in terms of whether or not they decide they want to order testing, and what level of treatment they think is appropriate for you. So you really have to kind of build that relationship with your doctor. But again, the more information you have for them when you go in, and the better sort of personal history you have in terms of what your normal is or was and where you're at now and what the progression has been, the better sense they're going to have, not only of you as a patient, but also of how you've been paying attention to things and how you've tracked things and how you're going to track things going forward. Because again, the more information they get, the more accurate that information is, the better their chances are at figuring out what's wrong, the better your chances are of getting things sorted out in a timely and efficient fashion, and potentially lowering the amount of discomfort you're in and lowering the amount of time you experience that discomfort for. Having said that, no approach is perfect, so your mileage may vary, but these are definitely things that would have helped me when I was going through my diagnosis stage, and hopefully will help you if that's what you're looking at currently. So I do hope that you can get the help that you need, and until next video, stay safe, stay healthy, I believe in you, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.